Right now, somewhere on Earth, someone is comparing their own face to a filter, smoothing their skin, narrowing their jaw, widening their eyes, chasing a version of beautiful that an algorithm quietly decided for them. You probably assume this chase is new. It isn't. Humans have been reshaping their own bodies to match a beauty standard for tens of thousands of years. The only thing that's actually changed is the standard itself. And some of the ones people used to suffer for, proudly, would genuinely shock you. Let's start with the one that would probably unsettle you the most if you saw it in person. In parts of the ancient Maya world, in the Andes, and even in parts of ancient France, newborn babies had their skulls gently bound between two flat wooden boards, pressed for months while the bones were still soft, until the head grew long, sloped, almost cone-shaped. This wasn't punishment, it was a gift. A long, elegant skull marked you as noble, intelligent, closer to the gods. Parents who could afford it did this to every child they had. The more dramatic the shape, the higher your status. You would have looked at a Maya noble's head and seen something alarming. They would have looked at your ordinary round skull and quietly assumed you were simply born to a family too poor to shape you properly. Teeth told a similar story, in the opposite direction depending on where exactly you were born. In parts of ancient Southeast Asia, including Bali and neighboring islands, having bright white teeth was considered almost animalistic, the kind of thing dogs and monkeys had. Adults deliberately stained and blackened their teeth using iron filings and tannins, a practice called ohaguro, which continued in parts of Japan for centuries afterward, especially among married women. Elsewhere in that same region, teeth were filed down flat and sometimes inlaid with small gold or jeweled studs, a permanent beauty procedure performed with nothing but a stone file and enormous patience. Your bright white smile, the one whitening strips and dentists spend so much effort protecting, would have looked strange, almost unfinished, to someone raised in that world. Pale skin had its own obsessive following too, in a completely different part of the world. In ancient Rome, and much later in Elizabethan England, pale, untouched skin was the ultimate mark of wealth and status, because it proved you didn't labor outdoors under the sun like a farmer or a servant. Wealthy women in both eras applied a substance called ceruse directly to their faces, a thick white paste made from lead and vinegar to look as pale as possible. It worked in the sense that it whitened the skin. It also poisoned the people wearing it, slowly, over years, and many of them had no idea why their hair was thinning or their skin was scarring underneath the very makeup meant to perfect it. Meanwhile, you, most likely, spend actual time and money trying to get a tan, chasing the exact opposite of what an Elizabethan noblewoman would have risked her health for. So here's the question worth sitting with for a second. If beauty were really one fixed, universal thing, hardwired somewhere into human biology, why would different cultures land on such wildly different, sometimes completely opposite, answers? Go back even further, to some of the very first images humans ever carved of themselves. Small stone and ivory figurines, some over 25,000 years old, found scattered across Europe. Archaeologists nicknamed them Venus figurines. They share one striking feature: wide hips, a full belly, heavy breasts, an exaggerated voluptuous shape. Many researchers believe these figures represent an actual ideal of beauty or fertility, or both, from a time when carrying real body fat meant you had survived famine, meant you could carry a pregnancy through a brutal winter, meant you were, quite literally, thriving. The lean, sharply defined body so many gyms and diets chased today would have looked, to the people who carved those figurines, less like health and much more like hunger. Eyebrows had their own strange standard entirely. In ancient Persia, and in parts of ancient Greece, a unibrow, eyebrows that met naturally in the middle, was considered a striking, desirable sign of both beauty and intelligence. Women without one sometimes darkened the skin between their brows with kohl just to fake the connection, deliberately drawing on a feature you have almost certainly plucked, waxed, or threaded away without ever giving it a second thought. In parts of West Africa and the Amazon, scarification became its own detailed language, written directly onto skin. Deliberate patterns of raised scars, carefully cut and sometimes packed with ash or plant irritants to raise the tissue further, marked identity, courage, marital status, and beauty, all at once, on a canvas your own culture generally treats as something to protect, never to decorate this permanently. And in parts of ancient Southeast Asia, later continuing among certain communities in Myanmar and Thailand, Brass coils were wrapped around the neck starting in early childhood, gradually added to year after year. The neck itself doesn't actually stretch the way it appears to. The coils slowly press the collarbone and ribs downward instead, creating the illusion of an impossibly long, elegant neck, still considered today, by the communities who practice it, one of the most beautiful traits a woman can have. Lip plates tell a similar story in parts of East Africa, particularly among the Mursi and Suri peoples of Ethiopia. Starting in adolescence, the lower lip is pierced and gradually stretched using increasingly larger clay or wooden discs. A larger final plate is, in many of these communities, a genuine mark of beauty, maturity, and social standing, worn with visible pride rather than hidden away or apologized for. None of these practices were considered strange, painful for no reason, or extreme by the actual people who lived inside them. They were simply what beautiful looked like, in that place, in that century. So what does all of this actually tell you? It tells you that beauty was never one fixed target, hiding somewhere in human biology, just waiting to be discovered. It was invented, over and over again, differently, by nearly every group of humans who ever lived. Long skulls, black teeth, lead-white faces, wide hips, connected eyebrows, scarred skin, elongated necks, stretched lips. Every single one of these was, somewhere, the actual definition of attractive. At the exact same moment, some other culture considered it grotesque, or simply never thought about it at all. Which brings us back to that filtered face from the very beginning of this video. The narrow jaw, the perfect symmetry, the smooth, poreless skin. An algorithm quietly decided was the standard. It isn't some universal truth your biology has been chasing all along. It's just the newest entry on a very, very long list. One more culturally invented target. No more permanent or real than a deliberately blackened tooth, a face painted with poison, or a skull pressed slowly into a cone shape. If humans are still here in a few hundred years, there is a real chance whatever you consider beautiful right now will look exactly as strange to them as a cone-shaped skull looks to you today. Oh, and one more thing before you go. In ancient Egypt, thick black eyeliner made from coal wasn't just for looks. Pharaohs, soldiers, and ordinary citizens, men and women alike, wore it daily, partly for status, and partly because it was believed to protect against eye infections and the glare of the desert sun. Your smudge-proof eyeliner has a 5,000-year-old ancestor, and it started out as medicine. If this made you question something you have never once questioned before, hit like and subscribe. Bob Wonders has a lot more questions to ask.